This is Free Talk Live. It's talk radio you control. You can call in and let us know what's on your mind and get your thoughts on the air. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's Stu.
And Saturday Night Live, Riley. Well, it is Saturday night, and I am live on the air, and I'm also Riley, so I figured I'd call myself Saturday Night Live Riley tonight.
Hey, I like it. It's good enough for me. I don't know if somebody else might have a gripe, but not me.
Well, whoever has a gripe can call in at 603-283-6160 and tell us why they have a gripe about it.
Yes, please do. Until then, we'll just talk about whatever it is we want to talk about.
Yeah, pretty much.
It looks like, Riley, you brought in a story from the Mises Institute.
Yep.
Is cultural degeneration biological or ideological?
So before we get into the article, I don't know if it's necessarily biological, but I do believe that human actions can cause cultural degenerations. For example, if people choose to not save for retirement or not save for a rainy day, that's on them, and yet we expect the government to bail us out or create a safety net for us, when in reality, our ancestors never had a safety net. They never had the opportunity to have a safety net where if they didn't plant their crops, that someone would come say, oh, well, you didn't plant your crops, I'll just feed you. Instead, they starved. And, the thing about having community is that didn't happen as often because people would band together and say, oh, well, he didn't do a very good job at plowing or planting this year. We can at least help him out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I would guess that it's more of an ideological thing than a biological thing.
Yeah.
The idea of human entropy, where humans just get worse no matter what as time goes on, doesn't add up, because at some point they must have gotten better. If you believe, if you believe the narrative that is evolution,
right?
Which I don't exactly disbelieve, but they've certainly got some explaining to do.
What do you mean by that?
Well, as far as I know, the whole explanation, and if you're listening and you know better than I do, because I'm no expert on this, the whole explanation for evolution hinges on the missing link idea. And I just get the feeling that link is going to go ahead and be missing forever. And that they'll just never find it because it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that creation theory as it happened in the Bible is true, because that's just ridiculous on its face.
You mean God didn't really create the earth in 7 days?
And then pull a rib out of a dude and make a woman and then give him contradicting commandments.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
well, I know some religions would say, especially Mormonism would say, well, it didn't really happen in 7 days. It could have been 7 creative periods, and who knows how old the earth is.
Yeah. I don't know if it's standard Mormon belief, but I did hear a Mormon explanation once that 1 God year is 1,000 Earth years. And so that was like 7,000 years.
I've heard that too. I think it's somewhere in like 1 Peter or 2 Peter in the Bible somewhere where it talks about 1 day with God is 1,000 years. And I think that's hyperbolical instead of literal, but some people like to take their magic holy books literal.
Yeah. It's easy to do if you don't think too deeply about it.
And there's nothing wrong with having sacred texts and reading them to inspire you on your daily life or whatever, but taking them so literally is just, it goes too far for me.
Yeah, I kind of need to verify things instead of just having the blind faith that the Mormon Church wanted.
Yep, me too.
All right, let's get into this article. The process of cultural decay is front of mind for those engaged in the pronatalist movement. The question of how it happens was raised by Robin Hanson in his recent appearance at NatalCon. There's a NatalCon, huh, for the pronatalist movement?
I guess so. I don't know what NatalCon is all about, but I imagine it's a conference on how we can bring life back to the planet.
His goal is to discover what cultural elements have contributed to fertility decline which he contends will accelerate movement toward a self-destructive way of life. Fertility decline is almost certainly from environmental toxins, like whether purposely taken in through food or quote-unquote medicines, or just industrial waste being, just thrown about willy-nilly. Almost certainly that's where I think the infertility is coming from.
That's entirely possible, and some people can't have kids because of the industrial waste and the microplastics and the fluoride in the water or whatever. But maybe also some people are choosing not to have kids because of some fear that maybe in their mind the earth is overpopulated, or in their mind that there won't be enough resources for their kids, so why should they have them? Things like that.
True that. There probably has been an increase in fear in the aggregate since 2001.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 9/11 kicked off a world of fear for statists out there who love the government. And, the Patriot Act came along and enslaved more people. And I remember, I'm old enough to remember when the left was all upset that the Bush administration was spying on people and engaging in warrantless wiretapping and, knocking on people's doors for their speech. But when Obama got elected, all that sort of questioning the government went away. And in 2013, 2014, when Snowden was coming out with his revelation saying, yeah, the government is indeed spying on you, Mr. and Mrs. America, and the left decided,
in the most egregious ways.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mr. and Mrs. leftist Americans decide,
nobody
he's
cares.
not a hero. He's a villain. We got to get rid of him. How dare he report this stuff on our government? The government's there to keep us safe, Mr. and Mrs. America. Don't you know?
Yeah.
It's just absurd.
It was either how dare he or meh, who cares?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Either way, I was not impressed. Back to the article. Conversely, he looks to the positive developments that have come before us, and they are evidence that culture is humanity's superpower. From his standpoint, this ability has come about because of natural selection, and that humans have proven themselves capable of cultural evolution. And now, perhaps, cultural devolution. Alright, I guess that tracks. Another claim he lays out is that one of the drivers of cultural evolution is the importance of status recognition. The idea goes that humans tend to mimic the behaviors of those perceived to hold lofty stature. For Hansen, one of the most powerful modern status markers is educational attainment. When it comes to marriage formation, he's onto something here indeed, as others have pointed out that it is a primary driver of mate selection in the modern West. Charles Murray has demonstrated that this is, in fact, one of the most important parameters in mate selection since the mid-20th century. It's sad that people equate intelligence with education, because I can't get my mind around the amount of absolutely retarded people that come out of college, like even with a master's or doctorate degree.
Well,
completely dumb as a rock.
Well, many of them are, I'm sure, because they think they have intellectual superiority, but there's a difference between being educated and having intelligence and having wisdom. Like, you can have all the knowledge in the world in your head, but if you don't apply that knowledge to, let's say you have all the knowledge about how to operate a car, and yet you don't even drive, then you're not applying wisdom to driving. You can have all the wisdom about how to live life to the fullest, and yet you're not living life to the fullest. So having education is important for sure. In my mind, being educated is important, but it's not intelligent to say that I'm so educated I know more. In fact, intelligence, in my mind, is understanding that, yes, I may have all this knowledge in my head, but I certainly don't know everything, and I don't know all the nuances of a position, so I would want to know as much as I can about it as possible.
Yep. Back to the article. For Hansen, this is a poor marker for mate selection, especially if one values a growing population. Just as wealth had been a highly important status marker for marriage in the past, which in his view has previously led to fertility decline, education as a status marker has done the same. If this selection mechanism leads to lower overall infertility, then it arguably turns into cultural decline, something that Hansen doesn't thoroughly define. He also distinguished between micro and macro cultures, with smaller peasant groups typifying the former and the modern nation state embodied in the latter. Hansen observes that macro cultures are susceptible to devolution to a higher degree than smaller, more nimble cultural units. The current state of the West, in his view, is represented by a global monoculture of elites. Here, he echoes a process that Bernd Wittig, that's a funny name, BRNDWIDDIG, that's Bernd Wittig, referred to as massification. And interestingly, Wittig saw that this process was a consequence of, wait for it, inflationism. He defines it as the transformation of formerly distinct entities into larger and larger numbers, which caused the single entity to lose its former value and distinctiveness. Wittig's account of the cultural attitudes and practices that emerged in the midst of the Weimar hyperinflation come forth in a somewhat obscure 1994 article that's unfortunately loaded with critical gender ideology. Its value, however, is made in a simple observation that for the middle class in the midst of an inflationary episode, this loss of purchasing power and identity is an attack not only on their social status, but also on traditional structures of gender identity and sexual dichotomy. All right. Indeed, the sexual division of labor is impacted by inflationary monetary policy. Men become more like women and women more like men. As this division of labor is reduced, the male-female distinction is eroded due to the universal pursuit of increased income in the labor market. Joseph Piper called this phenomenon proletarianization. That makes sense. One would expect that when the massification of gender is intensified, that the consequences of gender differences embodied in mating, fertility, and childbearing and rearing will recede. Cue the fertility crisis. I'm not sure this article is making logical connections very well.
Oh.
But maybe it's just me. Are you following this okay?
Kind of. Like, he's using a lot of heavy words. The author is using a lot of large words that, could confuse the listener. And so, I don't know. It seems like it's kind of hard to follow a little bit.
Well, I guess if I had to take a stab at it, it sounds like they're saying that they have a theory that that holding education as a value within a society leads to infertility because, I don't know, they didn't give the because.
Huh. Okay, well that's an interesting conclusion.
Maybe they did, and I didn't quite pick it up.
I would think that less educated people, more educated people would have kids more because then they could pass on their education to their kids. But, when you value education so highly and you don't value how to use that education, then you have student debts that are spiraling out of control. Then you have people with degrees who have useless degrees like underwater basket weaving. You can't do much of that degree except go weave a basket underwater. And who wants a basket that's been woven underwater except people who are buying those kinds of baskets? And that might be a really small market.
Yep, I'm not sure I've ever even seen a basket that was woven underwater. Is it woven or is it weaved? I'm not really sure.
I think it's woven.
All right. So we can continue on with this, but it's pretty long. Let's see.
We don't have to cover all of it if you don't want to. I think it's important to get the gist of the article, then we can discuss, the finer points if we need to.
Well, it's going to come to a juxtaposition here, I suppose. However, this anthropological claim stands in stark contrast to Mises's methodological dualism. Early in Human Action, he noted that reason and experience show us two separate realms: the external world of physical, chemical, and physiological phenomena, and the internal world of thought, feeling, valuation, and purposeful action. No bridge connects, as far as we can see today, these two spheres. For Misesians, human action and its outcome, culture, originate with the human mind, not from merely materialistic processes. Ultimately, Hansen's thesis on the degenerative trend in culture and fertility needs to be rejected on anthropological grounds. His perception of men and women as merely physical entities without real thoughts and ideas can't account for the differing fertility choices made among couples. Further, is the Misesian anthropological and economics that provides anthropology and economics that provides the best explanation of the drivers behind the fertility decline. Indeed, as couples have different ideas about the value of children, the experiences that are most important in their lives, their views on how to deal with scarcity and even inflation, they seek differing solutions. However, when an external force, like central bank imposed fiat inflation, is foisted upon all, there tends to be a massification of attitudes that is more short-sighted than it otherwise would be. To be sure, raising children is no short-run matter, and neither are long-run cultural investments that stand the test of time. When this set of ideas takes hold, cultural degeneration is sure to follow. And that is the end of the article. Okay. The rest of that made more sense to me because it's from the Misesian point of view.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I suppose the reason the original theory posited there didn't make a lot of sense to me was that it completely left out, the human action element of everything, the individual choice.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that individual choices always come into play. I mean, people want to centralize the economy and blame Donald Trump for messing up the economy or making the economy good, or whatever so-called president is occupying the awful office in the so-called government. But yet, economics come because of human actions, because you and I, Stu, make individual choices in our daily lives to decide what we want to value today. You may value some mushrooms today, and I might value mushrooms tomorrow, and you might grow some mushrooms, and I might say, hey, I'd like to trade some tomato soup or a grilled cheese sandwich for some mushrooms, and you're like, yeah, I'd like a grilled cheese sandwich, let's have a trade.
Well, the thing that happens, though, when mushrooms become really popular and suddenly, everybody's talking about mushrooms and where to get them, and everybody who's so everybody's either buying them or trying to find a way to sell them, and that's easy to get excited about, and it's easy to look at on a larger scale and forget about the individuals that make all of that happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And none of that happens unless the individual has an incentive to do so.
And that's the key, the incentive. Like, if I have the incentive to go grow mushrooms because I might be a shaman of some kind and decide that, I want to start a church of sorts and want to have my participants in my ceremonies have sacrament, and I grow mushrooms, I'm well within my ability to do so because the incentive is there. However, if I don't really like psychedelic mushrooms or any mushrooms at all, then what's the incentive for me to grow them except to sell something I don't want to have anyway? And if I can't sell it, what am I going to do with it?
Not a whole lot, I guess.
Yeah.
That's one of the tricky things about the market too, and why it is that people think they have a market figured out and they have no idea because they had no idea that the individual incentive was going to turn so hard for so many people all at once, and there really is no way to predict those kinds of things. You can look at trends, but you can't accurately predict what 300 million different individuals are going to say about any given thing.
Yeah, it's hard to predict the future.
Another article that Riley brought in.
I brought in a few articles this week, apparently.
Mm-hmm. I think I'd like to do this one from The Guardian. Record number of Americans seeking UK residency, says Home Office. Nearly 2,000 applications for British citizenship submitted since January when Donald Trump took office. Oh, I guess the lefties are actually serious this time.
I guess so. I guess somebody's serious. They want to leave America.
Yep.
Go back to the crown, bunch of Tories.
It's so funny how many times I hear that. And you hear it from both sides, too. Like,
yeah.
Oh, if that lefty president gets in there, I'm moving to Mexico or whatever.
Yeah.
If that right-wing president gets in, I'm moving to Canada or New Zealand or whatever the thing is.
They always threaten something, but whenever push comes to stuff, they're like, oh, I can't leave because reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, where are you going to go? There's different levels of being left alone, different places in the world, but unless we fix the overall problems, you can't run from the world's problems. They're going to find you in any little corner of the world.
And that's the thing I don't get about authority, is why is it that we believe in authority? Is it because...
I believe in legitimate authority, such as nature.
So, I guess you're right, but, hearing the terms legitimate authority evokes in my mind this idea that people who wear suits or dresses or whatever can have special titles and they suddenly have legitimate authority.
No, self-proclaiming your authority to be legitimate does not make it so.
Right.
That's not how this works. Nature is an authority because it will destroy you and not even really care.
Or create you.
And you can't really stop it. Like you can that's the thing about humans, is they're good at finding ways around that. Give us a call. Let us know what you think. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp, is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. US President Donald Trump's trade war continued to dominate much of the news for the week. Multiple countries are trying to do deals with the US to reduce or eliminate tariffs. On Friday, though, he said he would impose a 50% tariff on goods coming from the European Union. It came ahead of a planned meeting between US and EU trade representatives. FSN's William Denslow sent this report from Brussels.
Donald Trump's bombshell announcement comes as the EU has reportedly provided a list of concessions to Washington with the goal of de-escalating trade tensions. According to Politico, the proposal included plans to boost spending in areas such as energy and deepen ties in fields like 5 and 6G technology. But President Trump stated on social media that negotiations aren't progressing, and the US is expected to reject the European Commission's latest proposal.
2 Israeli embassy staff members were killed in a shooting outside a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. this week in what appeared to be a planned anti-Semitic attack. The suspect was arrested at the scene. Police said he was not on their radar. FSN's Tony Waterman sent this report from the scene of the shooting.
There has been a very heavy police presence here, investigators inside trying to work out those details. A suspect in this case has been identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago. FBI agents are there right now going through what they believe to be the apartment he was living in, looking for any sort of clues as to what motivated him. One thing we do know, officials are saying that after the shooting took place, he went inside the museum, and eyewitnesses say that he tried to pass himself off as an eyewitness himself before security officials detained him. And as he was going into custody, officials say that he said, "Free, free Palestine." So there seems to be a connection, perhaps, between what is going on in Israel, what has been happening in Gaza, and the shooting that took place here.
This week, US President Donald Trump ambushed his South African counterpart, Cyril Ramaphosa, in the Oval Office by playing a video and amplifying false claims that white South Africans have been victims of genocide. FSN's Kate Fisher was watching the argument unfold in Washington.
President Ramaphosa came to the White House seeking to discuss trade and critical minerals. Instead, he faced a televised ambush. The meeting started with pleasantries and discussions about golf and foreign policy. But then the tone changed. President Trump insisting on false claims of land seizures and mass killings of white Afrikaners, and largely dismissing Mr. Ramaphosa's attempt to describe the situation in his own country.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. It's talk radio you control. Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. Let us know what's on your mind. Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it will cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you are feeling so inspired. You will get a special membership badge that is visible in the Odyssey chat room, and there is a members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join today. In the studio tonight, it's Stu.
And Riley.
And previously, we were
talking about society collapse and what it's rooted in. And, Stu and I came to the conclusion that it's more about human action than anything, because we're all making various decisions throughout our lives and various decisions throughout our day. And we can choose to either be good human beings or bad human beings. And it's all about what choice are we making,
Yeah. It might be different if we were the Borg from Star Trek, but it's not.
Yeah.
Right now, we have a caller on the lines. Unscreened caller. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Wow. Today's show really sucks.
Why don't you go ahead and take your best shot at making it better?
Yeah, why don't you make it better, dude?
You know what amazes me, like how useless, you're talking about Mises, how useless praxeology is when studying the market and talking about human action. Ultimately, it's not really our action. We're not really that special. Evolution.
We are special. We're children of God, don't you know?
No, we're children of evolution.
Oh.
But Stu is kind of right. Evolution's really the true God, right? It really is the true ultimate. Well, actually, I don't want to say ultimate God because I don't know who created evolution, but you can see evolution's will, and Stu's right. Authority comes from nature. Authority comes from evolution.
I usually am right. Thanks for recognizing it.
Yes,
No,
he usually is right.
Just that one thing. But you're right in the wrong way. Right? Evolution's authority through the invisible hand, through the market, right? You can deduce what it wants, right? You can see its will, and it doesn't really care about humans. I think in my theory,
that's for humans to care about humans.
What's that?
That's for humans to care about humans.
No.
Why would nature care about humans?
Well, nature really doesn't ultimately care about humans. It's just using us as a stepping stone, just like the previous species that came before us, right?
Maybe.
Next thing you know, when AI comes about, we're going to be useless, right? Well,
do you care about humans?
Because you guys, huh?
Do you care about humans?
Only as a means to another end. Just like
evolution. That's cold, man. All right.
No, that's why you don't understand the market. You guys keep talking about the market. You don't even understand what it's doing. You don't even understand how evolution's distributing power through capitalism, right? So how does capitalism distribute? There's nothing wrong. First off, Mises is wrong. There's nothing necessarily wrong with centralization, right? The market centralizes power to those who best use it through the market, right?
Not necessarily.
Yes, necessarily. Do you think the market distributes money uniformly, or is it distributed based upon production through a Pareto distribution, which is somewhat centralized?
All right.
80-20 rule.
Let's consider for a moment all of the great ideas that have been squashed down by these industries that you claim to have been the greatest at filling the market need, right? So let's look at Standard Oil.
Who's they?
Who's Standard Oil? Are you familiar with the Rockefeller family?
Or they, right? Are you talking about businessmen? Are you talking about magnet? Are you talking about monopolies? What are you talking about?
Right now, I'm talking about Standard Oil. Do you know who that is?
Okay, I don't understand what group are you talking about that they're part of? What group are they?
The oil industry.
Standard Oil a part of that you're talking about? So the oil industry is suppressing ideas. What are you talking about? Who's suppressing ideas? Who's suppressing good ideas here?
Yes, the oil industry executives have paid money out of their own pockets to suppress ideas for electric cars and other things that would chip away at their market share.
Yeah, but that usually doesn't, unless it turns. So evolution is the ultimate judge through profit. Like if that idea is profitable, then it's probably a good one.
Then
right?
why do they have secrecy stamps at the patent office? Why is it that I could submit? Why do they have secrecy stamps at the patent office? Why is it that I could submit a patent and they could tell me it's secret and then I can't share it? Why does that exist? Is that to keep the market efficient?
Patent offices? That's not a market. That's not a market function. What are you talking about?
Well, it ought not be, but patent.
So a market function doesn't have patent offices. It's too expensive to suppress ideas, whether it be invention ideas or privacy.
What do you mean it's too expensive? All they got to do is threaten people, and then they don't share.
Who threatens using what mechanism? How are you going to do that in a real market?
They call it. I forgot the exact terminology for it. Why do you sound like?
Why do you have to be such a jerk, dude?
You know what I really want to know about, Skeeter, is what your relationship is like with your father.
That's what I want to know too.
I hate his guts.
I bet you do, and I bet he really screwed you up because you were an interesting individual who's got almost.
Well, I try to mirror his beliefs, right? And by mirror, I mean. Be the total opposite, right? He was like he's stupid. I don't care. I don't want to talk about my father.
I do. I want to talk about your dad.
But, so before next time you call, and thanks for the call, Skeeter. Before next time you call back, why don't you sit there and think for a real long time about what it is about your relationship with your father that causes you to act the way that you do.
Now we're psychoanalyzing Skeeter, which is great.
It's almost certainly a parent's issue with that guy.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of people have parental issues that they don't deal with. I mean, I speak...
Oh, for sure.
I speak for myself in this too. Like, I'm not a perfect human being. I know I have parental issues that I still have to deal with. That's why I'm in New Hampshire, so I can, be away from my family a little bit and deal with my own emotions and deal with my stuff instead of being enmeshed with them and having them continually trigger me. I think it's important to step away from them for a little bit. It's not that I don't love my family. In fact, I'm going back to see them in July, end of July, early August, and I expect I'll be hanging out with my dad and we'll talk about things and hopefully have good conversations.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's possible to have a perfect relationship with one's parents or with one's children. But supposing one did have that perfect relationship with their parents, there'd still be this subconscious, unsettled, cosmic parental abandonment feeling to deal with, which is like kind of just why were we all left here on this cold rock the way we are. So we've all got parent issues, but I think dealing with those can go a long way to getting your mind in a singular state so that what you think and what you feel are in line with what you do. That's my advice for Skeeter. I doubt he'll take it.
No, I don't think he will. I think the next time we hear from him, he won't have worked through his issues and thought about things and maybe realize, maybe I need to grow up a little bit. Maybe I need to actually listen to people and take their words and really have an honest conversation with people.
If I can remember next time, I want to try to get him to disclose whether and which psychotropic drugs he's on.
That would be interesting.
All right, into this article, record number of Americans seeking UK residency, says Home Office. Over the period, during the 12 months leading up to March, more than 6,000 U.S. citizens have applied to either become British subjects or to live and work in the country indefinitely, the highest number since comparable records began in 2004, according to data released on Thursday by the UK's Home Office. I'm so happy they use the word subjects because that's exactly what it is.
Yes. I mean, it is what it is. It is a good term for what they want to be. Subjects. They want to be subjects to a gang, really. And that's what this institution is. They want to be subjects of the crown. They want to have this crown take care of me. Oh, please, crown, take care of me.
Almost sounds like an admission that democracy is a bad idea and we should have just stuck with the monarchy we had in the first place.
Yeah, well, UK is a democracy, so they claim.
No, they're a monarchy. They're a parliamentary monarchy.
Yeah, that's true.
They are. That's what it's listed as. But actually, the crown does hold sway. They just act like they don't for PR reasons.
I wonder why
For example, the crown has a veto over any law that Canada wants to pass. So, Canada, if you think you're not subjects of the British crown, you absolutely are.
Yeah, you are. I wonder why people obsess over royalty and crowns and things like that. I really do.
And it's just left over from people actually swallowing the lie that they had a divine right to rule.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing too. And I wonder if it's this idea that the people who love authority and love the crown and love royalty and things like that are still dealing with their own parental issues and authority issues.
Yeah, probably.
They want someone to love them, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all want love. But at the end of the day, if you're getting your love from a group of strangers calling themselves government or a gang of thugs versus the people around you, then that to me is problematic because these people don't love you.
Yeah, if this is you and you really need some love, I've found the best place to get that is to go inside and find it because you can give yourself all the love you want.
Yeah, you really can, and that's really hard to do sometimes because we get in our thoughts, we get in our heads, and we see all the horrible things we've done, and maybe we think we're just worthless people. And then we carry that out unconsciously on other people around us. and we're rude to them, we're obnoxious, and at the end of the day, what we got to realize is that, wait a minute, I'm worth it. If I'm worth it, Stu is worth it, and if Stu's worth it, then everyone else is worth it too.
Yeah, or at least you can be comforted in knowing that you're capable of loving yourself.
Yeah. Now we're starting to sound like hippies.
There's a very high amount of comfort in that.
Yeah.
Back to the article. Over the period, 6,618 Americans applied for British citizenship, with more than 1,900 of the applications received between January and March, most of which has been during the beginning of Donald Trump's second U.S. presidency. The surge in applications at the start of 2025 made the highest number for any quarter on record. The figures come as British authorities under...
So-called authorities.
So, self-appointed authorities under a Labour government are trying to reduce immigration to the UK, with Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer vowing to take back control of our borders and warning that uncontrolled immigration could result in the country becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. As far as I know, the UK has been destroying itself with immigration for like a decade or so, and so I'm not sure if they are aware of that or if they're just now becoming aware of that. But you can't just offload a whole bunch of people with an entirely different culture. And I'm not against closed borders. I'm not a closed borders guy, but you can't jam a large amount of one culture into another and expect it to go smoothly. It just doesn't work like that.
I agree.
Every culture has its own checks on how to keep people in line, and it has its own tolerances for what is acceptable and what isn't.
And sometimes, when cultures clash, it creates this divide on how we're going to solve this problem.
Oh yeah, and there's nobody easier to hate than the other, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, when the other only hurt people will hurt people.
Mm-hmm. UK figures show net migration dropped by almost half in 2024 to 431,000 compared with 2023. The surge in U.S. applications for UK residency comes as American immigration lawyers say they are receiving an increasing number of inquiries. Some are pointing to the polarized political climate in the Trump-led country, which itself is mounting an aggressive immigration-related crackdown. This is a name that I'm going to have a hard time with. Muhuithan Parameswaran. We're going to call this guy MP. An immigration lawyer at Wilson's Solicitors in London told the New York Times that inquiries had arisen in the immediate aftermath of the election and the various pronouncements that were made. So this is a bunch of Americans that want to run away because they're scared of Trump and what he may do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't like Trump, but I'm not afraid of him. And I think people who are afraid of what Trump is doing need to take a closer look at what they've allowed their favorite politicians to do.
There's definitely been an uptick in inquiries from U.S. nationals, MP told the outlet. People who were already here may have been thinking, I want the option of dual citizenship in the event that I don't want to go back to the U.S. Zina Lukowa, a partner at Laura Devine Immigration, which specializes in U.S. migration to the U.K., was more explicit in pointing to the political landscape amid Trump's government. Lukowa told the outlet that the rise was not limited to U.S. nationals, but also other nationalities living there. The queries we're seeking are not necessarily about British citizenship. It's more about seeking to relocate, Lukowa said to the Times. However, the increase in U.S. applications to the UK may not necessarily reflect political conditions in either country. Of the 5,521 settlement applications from U.S. citizens last year, most were from people who were eligible via spousal or family links. The MP said such applications were likely to decline because the UK government had extended the qualification period from 5 years to 10 before they could apply for settlement. But Labour government politicians have hinted that some applicants may be able to skirt those requirements. That echoes one aspect of Trump's thinking in the U.S., where he has floated the idea of an immigration gold card. In essence, an extension of the EB-5 program that extends green cards to foreign investors and their families. The UK Home Secretary Yvette Cooper told Parliament earlier in May that there will be provisions to qualify more swiftly that take account of the contribution people have made, and said the British government will introduce new, higher language requirements because the ability to speak English is integral to everybody's ability to contribute and integrate. Yeah, that makes sense. It's tough to work with people that don't speak English.
Yeah, it's tough to communicate when you don't know the language of the other person.
That happened commonly enough to me that I had to learn the phrase, please move your truck, in Spanish.
Yeah.
For doing, construction work in Utah. Yeah, I don't know. Run away, I guess.
Well, that's the thing.
Have fun in the UK. I don't think you're going to... I don't think you're going to like it there.
People have this fantasy that because the UK has better healthcare, allegedly, that it's government-run healthcare, that's going to be so much better and cheaper. But the reality is the healthcare there is terrible. Like, you may get free healthcare at times, but so does everyone else. And, doctors are not incentivized to work for the UK government healthcare system because they're not going to get paid.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and it changes the incentive in so many ways. If you're young and you can put out a lot of work into the economy still, you're going to get better. You're going to get better attention from the medical system than you are if you're closer to the end of your work life. You pretty much viewed the way Skeeter would view you.
Yeah. Well, I just want to correct myself. I think they'd get paid. I just don't think they're paid by the average person visiting them.
Yeah. Speaking of health, I'd like to actually pose a question to the listeners. A topic to call in about if you have any experience using chlorine dioxide, CDS, as a health beneficial supplement of sorts. This is a thing that's highly unstable, so you basically have to off-gas it into water, so you have it suspended in water at about 3,000 parts per million. It's a chlorine dioxide, which contains actually no chlorine molecule. It has I think it's a chlorite ion.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 oxygens, right? So it's kind of like water, except that you replace the hydrogen in there with a chlorite or chlorine. Either way, Dr. Andreas Kalker, who's a German doctor, decided he wanted to take this stuff to see if he could use it to cure his arthritis, because the medical system there was unable to come up with a good solution for him. And apparently he did indeed cure his arthritis with it.
Really?
Yeah. And after that he started looking into what else the thing could do, and there's not a whole lot of research on this. It is a thing that has precedence as being used medically in some of the poorer countries where they don't have access to pharmaceuticals. Either way, to me, it seems harmless, and it is actually approved by the FDA for water purification.
Yeah.
So, anyways, if any listeners have any experience with this, I'm very curious to find out more. I have been drinking it myself on, he's got various protocols there, and what seems to be the maintenance protocol is he calls Protocol C. So I've been doing that for, 5 weeks or so. And I feel pretty good. I haven't grown an extra foot or anything weird yet, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, keep us posted, man.
Yep. Let's see. I've got... there was a good one on Activist Post about crypto stuff. Binance's former Russia head, Blum co-founder, arrested in connection to fraud case. Vladimir Smirkis, Binance's former Russian division head, was arrested in Russia for being connected to a large-scale criminal fraud case, local media outlet TASS reported on Sunday. Zamoskvoretsky District Court, which resides in Moscow, granted an investigator's request to detain Smirkis, an unnamed law enforcement agency source told TASS. The report did not share specific details of the fraud case. CoinDesk was unable to contact the Zamoskvoretsky District Court for more information. This is interesting. Maybe Russia's starting a war on crypto of their own over there.
I'm sure they probably are. They don't like crypto.
Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. US President Donald Trump's trade war continued to dominate much of the news for the week. Multiple countries are trying to do deals with the US to reduce or eliminate tariffs. On Friday, though, he said he would impose a 50% tariff on goods coming from the European Union. It came ahead of a planned meeting between US and EU trade representatives. FSN's William Denslow sent this report from Brussels.
Donald Trump's bombshell announcement comes as the EU has reportedly provided a list of concessions to Washington with the goal of de-escalating trade tensions. According to Politico, the proposal included plans to boost spending in areas such as energy and deepen ties in fields like 5 and 6G technology. But President Trump stated on social media that negotiations aren't progressing, and the US is expected to reject the European Commission's latest proposal.
2 Israeli embassy staff members were killed in a shooting outside a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. this week in what appeared to be a planned anti-Semitic attack. The suspect was arrested at the scene, Police said he was not on their radar. FSN's Tony Waterman sent this report from the scene of the shooting.
There has been a very heavy police presence here, investigators inside trying to work out those details. A suspect in this case has been identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago. FBI agents are there right now going through what they believe to be the apartment he was living in, looking for any sort of clues as to what motivated him. One thing we do know, officials are saying that after the shooting took place, he went inside the museum, and eyewitnesses say that he tried to pass himself off as an eyewitness himself before security officials detained him. And as he was going into custody, officials say that he said, "Free, free Palestine." So there seems to be a connection, perhaps, between what is going on in Israel, what has been happening in Gaza, and the shooting that took place here.
This week, US President Donald Trump ambushed his South African counterpart, Cyril Ramaphosa, in the Oval Office by playing a video and amplifying false claims that white South Africans have been victims of genocide. FSN's Kate Fisher was watching the argument unfold in Washington.
President Ramaphosa came to the White House seeking to discuss trade and critical minerals. Instead, he faced a televised ambush. The meeting started with pleasantries and discussions about Gulf and foreign policy. But then the tone changed. President Trump insisting on false claims of land seizures and mass killings of white Afrikaners, and largely dismissing Mr. Ramaphosa's attempt to describe the situation in his own country.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. A warning this week from US retailer Target after it posted weaker-than-expected first-quarter results. It blamed economic conditions as well as changes to its diversity, equity and inclusion policies. FSN's Mitch McCann was poring over the numbers and sent this report from New York.
Target's stock price on the New York Stock Exchange took a hammering on Wednesday after news the company missed its first-quarter revenue estimates and cut its full-year sales outlook. Sales fell nearly 3% year-on-year, transactions in-store and on its website fell by 2.4%, and the average spend of its customers during online and in-store visits also fell by 1.4%, so a slate of bad news for Target. Target has identified a number of reasons for the large slump, including declining consumer confidence, uncertainty about the impact of tariffs, and a customer revolt earlier in the year. That was because Target announced it was scaling back its DEI efforts, leading to a very expensive boycott from customers.
This week, the UK, France and Canada threatened Israel with concrete actions over its expansion of military operations in Gaza. The joint statement condemned the humanitarian crisis in the besieged enclave and Israel's response to what the three countries called the intolerable level of human suffering. FSN's Simon Gaitan sent this report from London.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer joined French President Emmanuel Macron and newly elected Canadian Premier Mark Carney in issuing a joint statement calling on Israel to stop its military operations in Gaza and immediately allow humanitarian aid to enter the territory. While reiterating condemnation of Hamas's attack on October 7th, demanding the release of all remaining hostages and supporting Israel's right to defend itself, the statement strongly opposes the expansion of Israel's military actions in Gaza, calling the escalation, quote, wholly disproportionate, and Israel's announcement to allow limited food into Gaza wholly inadequate.
And that's the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. In local news, a succession of terrible events failed to befall a 33-year-old riding a longboard to his digital media job Monday. Shocked bystanders helplessly watched as media developer Jake Reston skated safely through Manhattan traffic without flipping over on his obnoxiously oversized skateboard and smashing his stupid face into the pavement, with many saying they were horrified at the sight of the floppy-haired little shit walking into his office unscathed.
It was one of the most horrible things I've ever seen. He wasn't even hit by a car. I was just praying that someone would step in and throw him off the stupid little skateboard and punch him right in the mouth.
In other news, a study finds owning a cool leather jacket is more rewarding than raising a child. A community garden sprouts the first condom wrapper of spring, and a little turtle gorges on an entire raspberry.
Tonight in the cabin, schoolmarm's telling about how they talk about corpulation down the school. Only a fool needs telling how to screw. Just let the pecker guide you. But come on, listen anyhow.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. Call in at 603-283-6160 to get your thoughts on the air. Are you tired of the oppressive rules and moderation of the big tech social media sites? Our Mastodon server at social.freetalklive.com can set you free. Mastodon is free, open source, decentralized, and federated. Multiple apps are available for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, and Linux. Social.freetalklive.com. In the studio tonight, it's Stu.
And Saturday Night Live Riley.
Let's see. Previously, we were talking about a crypto arrest in Russia. This is Vladimir Smirkus, who was arrested in Russia for being connected to a large-scale criminal fraud case. Smirkus co-founded trading app Bloom in December 2023, but the company said Saturday on X he had stepped down from his role as chief marketing officer and is no longer involved in the project. He has also been the managing partner of 4 other ventures, including Tokenbox.io and the Token Fund, according to LinkedIn. Prior to starting Bloom, Smirkus worked for the Binance crypto exchange from 2022 for just under 2 years. In that time, he was the head of Russia and later the head of its Commonwealth of Independent States business, according to LinkedIn. The CIS is a group of 11 nations which coordinate on key decisions like trade and lawmaking. Russia is among those nations. Binance did not return a request for comment. So there you go. They're not saying a whole lot about this arrest, but sounds like it might be an actual fraud case.
Might be, but you know, sometimes when big companies don't comment on things, it's just a PR move.
Yep.
Maybe they're dirty dealing.
Maybe they are.
I just think it's interesting that, you know, when crypto arrests come up, we on Free Talk Live like to assume the best. You know, we like to assume that this is government harassment, and maybe it is government harassment. But sometimes legitimate fraud things happen.
Sometimes they do. And it's shocking how little of what the people who are supposed to keep us safe from that, it's shocking how little of what they do is actually that.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that in Ian Freeman's case where the scammers were not, the government didn't go after the scammers. They were going after Ian Freeman who just sold Bitcoin to people.
Yeah, and they said right there in the courtroom and in front of God and everybody, they said it straight out that we're not interested in the guy that got away with all this money. We're just interested in Ian.
Yeah.
So,
well, they wanted a poster boy or a fall child or a fall guy to stick things on. They wanted a scapegoat, essentially, to just stick these crimes to because they didn't really have anybody. But Ian was an activist. He sold Bitcoin, and he was caught up in this mess. And so, hey, let's get the scapegoat. We can make it look like we're actually doing something as government, and then people will give us medals and accolades and cheer us on.
Yeah, indeed. So in that case, definitely not a legitimate fraud charge. And this one in Russia, maybe so.
Yeah.
Here's another one that looks like it might be good from Activist Post. This one is from Patrick Wood of Technocracy News. If you're not familiar with Patrick Wood, I recommend getting familiar. He's got some very interesting viewpoints into the possibilities for technological totalitarianism coming shortly to a neighborhood near you.
Oh.
So this title, the title of this article is Technopopulism's Trojan Horse: How the Dark Enlightenment hijacked the populist movement. By all appearances, a populist revival is sweeping the globe, from rural heartlands to digital spaces and political rallies. It is a movement claiming to reclaim the nation from the grasp of corrupt elites, transnational bureaucracies, and decaying liberal democracies. But look closer, and the image distorts. What presents itself as grassroots rebellion is often being driven by figures and ideologies that despise the very foundation of populist thought: individual liberty, local self-governance, the rule of law, and constitutional restraint. The ideological force at work behind this sleight of hand is techno-populism, a mutation of traditional populism incubated in the philosophical engine of the Dark Enlightenment, where thinkers like Curtis Yarvin, aka Manchus Moldbug, reframe democracy not as a safeguard of freedom, but as a failed experiment that must be replaced by algorithmic governance and executive rule. Just the very mention of that sentence kind of gives me chills.
Yeah.
In this warped mirror, populists are no longer the champions of liberty. They are foot soldiers for a new, data-driven ruling class. The bait: populist language, libertarian aesthetics. Technopopulism emerged through Silicon Valley corridors and NRX blogs, but have found a global audience by weaponizing the language of populism. Anti-elite rhetoric, calls to restore order and competence, and celebrations of free markets and free speech. Figures like Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and Balaji Srinavisan. Don the Pop. I've not heard of this guy. Have you?
No, I haven't. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name either.
Part of the bro-rocracy, I guess. These guys don the populist mantle while proposing visions in which freedom is redefined as submission to optimized systems, where code becomes law, and where traditional political authority is replaced with tech stack sovereignty. Yarvin explicitly denounces democracy, calling for a monarch acting like a corporate CEO. Peter Thiel has praised the beauty of a post-democratic Singapore. Srinivasan envisions replacing nation-states with network states governed by digital platforms and biometric entry keys. The switch from liberty to order. Traditional populism, whether American, Hungarian, or Indian, rests on sovereignty of the people, preserved through limited government, inalienable rights, and rule of law. It resists centralized control. But techno-populism flips the script. Sovereignty is inefficient, rights are flexible, rule of law is optional if the algorithms work better. Techno-populists promise a new golden age, but only if we surrender the old architecture of liberty. They frame autocratic governance as a feature, not a bug, so long as it's efficient and technologically sophisticated. This is not a restoration of freedom. It is the soft coup of the digital elite masquerading as rebellion. Network states, the technocratic utopias of the right. Nowhere is the deception clearer than in the rise of so-called network states, promoted by Balaji Srinivasan and bankrolled by Thiel-affiliated capital. These are digital startup societies that aim to gain political recognition and replace traditional governments. Projects like Prospera in Honduras and Praxis aren't citizen-led movements. They are venture capital experiments where unelected founders design governance from the top down. In other words, a technocracy.
I know Mark has talked about Prospera on Free Talk Live and mentioned it was a ZA and a Free Cities movement type thing, but, you know, having these people point out that there might be a technocracy sort of thing does give me pause a little bit.
Yeah, I was aware that Mark of Free Talk Live was involved in Prospera. I don't know to what degree. It somewhere between, interest and actual investment. I'm not sure, but also I haven't studied very deeply the inner workings of Prospera.
Neither have I.
I don't know what their charters are like. And,
yeah.
And I don't know if they have their own constitution, and if they do, what it says. I really don't know that much about it. Patrick Wood is claiming they're technocracies, though. These entities promise freedom from bureaucracy. In reality, they offer private sovereignty ruled by unaccountable arch-technocrat billionaires with little regard for the communities they displace. The parallel of globalists and anti-globalists. While populists cheer the downfall of the liberal order, they are unknowingly embracing a technocratic mirror image of the very system they oppose. Both global technocrats, UN, WEF, and EU, and anti-globalist techno-populists, Thiel Network, Dark Enlightenment, etc. Both these groups believe the future belongs to digital systems. Constitutional democracy is obsolete. Efficiency outweighs rights. Governance should be optimized, not debated. In both visions, the common man loses. He may be told he has a voice, but in practice, his behavior is engineered through smart grids, carbon scores, or blockchain sovereignty. Whether it is called sustainable development or startup citizenship, the effect is the same. Technocratic control disguised as empowerment.
I don't have a problem with technocratically controlled systems as long as I can opt out.
Ah, that's where it is, right? That's where the real crux is. Is there a different technocratic system that I can sign up for when this one no longer suits my needs?
Yeah.
Or
can I just opt out entirely?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Right now, that's not even a possibility. I guess being a stateless person on this planet right now is an absolute nightmare that just leaves you open to whichever gang of thugs wants to put you in a cage or do whatever they want to you.
Well, if you want to live like a gypsy, they won't let you because being homeless is a crime.
Yeah. Well, being homeless, if you have your papers, please, may not be so criminal, but if you just claim to not be under the rulership of anybody on the planet, they really don't like that.
No, they don't. They want to have you tagged and know where you're going and know who you're with and all that sort of stuff.
Yep. And from what I understand, if you make that claim and you stick to it, you're going to have a very bad experience once you come up against the people who don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
Right now, we have a caller on the lines, and that's the point of this show. So let's go to the phones. On the screen caller, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. You were talking about opting out. Yeah, that would be great. That'd be awesome. And sometimes it's not, though. You know what I mean? Like, think about how it is now when you try to go to your job. Say you lost your job. Just about everywhere you go, you have to fill out an application online. There's very few places where you can go to, like, just hand in a piece of paper or your resume. They all want it online. You know why? Because it's easy to close that window. That's all it is. They skim through it, they close it, you don't get the job. With paper application, you might actually get a handshake. But that's just where I think we're at. You know, opting out, it doesn't matter anymore, really. I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. They have all the money. They bought all the politicians.
Well, suppose you could opt out from their monetary system and their political system.
And gather with like-minded people.
Well, then it might matter. And I kind of fail to see how that relates to jobs in the way that you explain. I don't know. My view on jobs is kind of skewed also because I'm not of the mindset that I go filling out applications and hope somebody will allow me to be their grunt, because that's not how self-owning people act.
Yeah. Well, if I wanted to get a job, my ultimate thing would be Like, yeah, I can understand filling out jobs online is frustrating and time consuming or whatever, and frustrating. Yeah, I can understand that filling out job applications online can feel rather depersonalized and rather frustrating because you're not getting a handshake. And it'd be nice to go into a place of business and hand them your application and ask them, hey, when are the interviews going to happen? But
well, if it's about the handshake, doing something entrepreneurial would get you a whole bunch more of those. Where, like, if you get a job, you might get one from the boss.
Yeah.
If you're an entrepreneur, you're going to get one from each of your customers, and that's a whole lot more handshakes. So maybe just go that route. Sometimes I do think about getting a job once in a while just so I can have the pleasure of quitting a job again, because that is a wonderful experience. Everybody who can hear my voice right now, please just quit your job. Walk into your place of employment tomorrow with a big smile on your face. Go right into your boss's office and tell them, I quit. And if you have gripes with the place, please air them. Just let them know everything you hate about the place, and then walk out and never go back. You'll find another way. You're not going to starve to death. Life might be rough for a little bit, but please, quit your job. You might save the world.
You just might. Or you might save yourself the heartache of being someone's grunt for the rest of your life and being part of the system and being part of the tax-paying cattle.
Or at the very least, maybe you'll learn something through the adversity that you're confronted with after having quit your job.
Yeah.
We've got another caller on the phone, so we're going to go back to the phones. On the screen, caller, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, it's good to hear from you guys. And I just wanted to bring up this Christian halfway house. It's called Under Construction. And what's amazing is that I really like these because they were on a local Christian show for a whole hour. And you know, that's pretty impressive. And then they were also on the local radio show for a whole hour in the morning show as a guest. So that they're really, really out there letting themselves know what they are. So that's really impressive. So, but I think it goes up to, they try to help you sober up from drugs and alcohol and get your life together. And it's like a 1-year program, but they extend it if you need like up to 3 years.
And this is run by one of your local churches? Is that what you said?
Well, it's a 501c3. It's a nonprofit. And from what I was told, it's they're the one that come to the New Beginnings Church. That's what the wife told me. They were already a nonprofit, separate entity, but they're like, we want to be part of your church. So they bring all their church people to that church. For some reason, they're like what you call a parachurch. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, how does that work? So they told me that they don't have to donate money from the church, but they do if they want to. So, but they kind of like, they're a separate group, but they want to come to their church to be part of their group. So they actually have an under construction truck, and they bring people for the Sunday service. So, you know, so I just wanted to let people know. So all things are possible. I was thinking if God wanted it, he could make hundreds of these homes if there was a need for it.
Well, God obviously doesn't want it because hundreds of those homes don't exist.
Also, I've never seen God building anything.
Neither have I.
But I have seen churches pay people to build stuff.
Yeah, but don't you think that people are doing it, but God told them to do it? Like, we're all parts of...
They can believe that God told them to do it, but it doesn't mean that God actually told them to do it.
You know what? I believe that everything that we have is because God wanted it.
Okay.
I mean... You know, like, I mean, okay, your life, your breath that you have, the heart that beats, if God pulled out of you the energy or the thing that comes through to keep you alive, you'll be dead.
I don't think God works like that. I don't think God goes around willy-nilly stirring up the pot with his finger whenever he wants to.
I don't think so
I think
either.
he set forth some rules and is now backed off. Or maybe she.
I would think
Probably
that God
more
is
likely
she.
I think that, I really think, you know how people have special talents and it's so easy for them, whether it's musical or engineering talent. Well, it's a God-given talent. It's so easy for them to mathematical wizards or computer wizards. It's really a God-given talent. It's not because, that's what I believe. So all things are possible. But the thing about
are flying horses possible?
Well, if God allowed it, I mean,
right. And that's what I'm saying, Sarah, is that I think God has not allowed that, and that he doesn't just change his mind and suddenly God's like, you know what, today I want horses to fly.
Or I want to make a rock so heavy I can't lift it.
God set out the rules that this is what a horse is and what it does, and that's how it remains, and not unchangeably. But you can see epigenetic and genetic mutations resulting in what a lot of people like to call evolution. But so obviously things change. I'm not so sure that's because there's a magic sky dude up there deciding that he wanted that change to happen.
Yeah, you're right. And then what I learned is that our ancestors were acclimated to eating meat. So people that are complete vegetarians, they're very, very unhealthy because our ancestors adapted to eating meat.
Some of them, depending on what part of the world your ancestors are from.
Really, some are prone to eat more meat because they were actual hunters.
Yeah, but some people don't do very well if they eat only meat.
Yeah.
Whereas Inuits, their diet is almost completely like blubber, like almost just total like walrus and whale fat, because there's almost no vegetation in the area where they're living.
Right, and then they function well because their body acclimated.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think that some vegetarians, if you're a complete vegetarian, it's very bad. So
could be. Different bodies take things differently. Thanks for the call tonight, Sarah. What do you think? Is strictly vegetarian diet bad? I know there are certain fatty acids you need. Give us a call. Let us know what your experience is with that. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. US President Donald Trump's trade war continued to dominate much of the news for the week. Multiple countries are trying to do deals with the US to reduce or eliminate tariffs. On Friday, though, he said he would impose a 50% tariff on goods coming from the European Union. It came ahead of a planned meeting between US and EU trade representatives. FSN's William Denslow sent this report from Brussels.
Donald Trump's bombshell announcement comes as the EU has reportedly provided a list of concessions to Washington with the goal of de-escalating trade tensions. According to Politico, the proposal included plans to boost spending in areas such as energy and deepen ties in fields like 5 and 6G technology. But President Trump stated on social media that negotiations aren't progressing, and the US is expected to reject the European Commission's latest proposal.
2 Israeli embassy staff members were killed in a shooting outside a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. this week in what appeared to be a planned anti-Semitic attack. The suspect was arrested at the scene. Police said he was not on their radar. Ever since Tony Waterman sent this report from the scene of the shooting.
There has been a very heavy police presence here, investigators inside trying to work out those details. A suspect in this case has been identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago. FBI agents are there right now going through what they believe to be the apartment he was living in, looking for any sort of clues as to what motivated him. One thing we do know, officials are saying that after the shooting took place, he went inside the museum, and eyewitnesses say that he tried to pass himself off as an eyewitness himself before security officials detained him. And as he was going into custody, officials say that he said, "Free, free Palestine." So there seems to be a connection, perhaps, between what is going on in Israel, what has been happening in Gaza, and the shooting that took place here.
This week, US President Donald Trump ambushed his South African counterpart, Cyril Ramaphosa, in the Oval Office by playing a video and amplifying false claims that white South Africans have been victims of genocide. Ever since Kate Fisher was watching the argument unfold in Washington.
President Ramaphosa came to the White House seeking to discuss trade and critical minerals. Instead, he faced a televised ambush. The meeting started with pleasantries and discussions about golf and foreign policy. But then the tone changed. President Trump insisting on false claims of land seizures and mass killings of white Afrikaners, and largely dismissing Mr. Ramaphosa's attempt to describe the situation in his own country.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. It's talk radio you control. Give us a call. The phone number is 603-283-6160. I'd like to thank Clamoring for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Clamoring went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks again to Clamoring and everyone who supports us. Again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. In the studio tonight, it's Stu.
And Riley.
Previously, we had some calls. Before that, we were reading an article from the Activist Post, which was
about technocracy.
Yes, it was a Patrick Wood article.
And how technocracy was the game plan of the Elon Musks of the world. It wasn't liberty. It was making government more efficient, not ending government or ending the power of the state. It was making it more efficient and optimizing it.
Yep. The title of this article was Technopopulism's Trojan Horse: How the Dark Enlightenment Hijacked the Populist Movement. And where we left off was the irony of the Freedom Stack. In software development, the phrase full stack refers to the customer-facing application plus the back-end database configuration and processing. The use of Freedom Stack is appropriate, except in reality, it is a slavery stack. Perhaps the most tragic irony is that many liberty-minded citizens have been duped into building their own chains. Populists fail to see that they are helping replace one end-to-end surveillance regime with another, trading government overreach for technocrat omniscience. Technopopulism presents compliance as liberty. You are free as long as you don't trigger the algorithm. Conclusion: the rebellion that wasn't. The Dark Enlightenment hasn't just critiqued democracy, it has infiltrated and redirected populist energy into a project that retains populist aesthetics but implements technocratic governance. The result is a hollowed-out resistance movement, waving liberty flags while marching toward a hyper-digitized, corporately governed future. Populists are not reclaiming the republic, they are birthing its replacement. And until this deception is exposed, technocracy will rise unchallenged, wearing the very clothes of freedom it seeks to destroy. I think that's a well-written article.
I think so too.
I have a hard time agreeing with any of the points therein. This is kind of my dualistic love-hate relation, or I don't know, maybe love suspect relationship with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because I'm absolutely enamored of the idea of a digital money system that I can send anywhere in the world and nobody can stop me.
I agree.
It's absolutely the permissionlessness of it that makes me very excited about Bitcoin. That just not having, what do they call them? Not doorkeepers, but gatekeepers.
Gatekeepers, yeah.
Yeah. Not having gatekeepers in charge of what you can and can't do with your money to keep you safe. Like, I'd rather suffer the consequence of making a mistake with my own money than to have,
Yeah, because then you'll learn that, I made a mistake. I should not do that again.
Yep.
And I'd be more mindful.
Yep. And so Bitcoin could be everything that freedom-loving people want it to be, or it could be very tyrannical and bad for freedom in general, just depending on where it goes in the future. Right? It's still kind of up in the air, and I saw one major change happen to the protocol in 2017. There's nothing that says more changes aren't coming down the road.
Yeah.
I just hope there are changes towards usability and freedom, and not you can't save and you've already spent your limit on meat for this month kind of a thing.
Yeah, and that's the problem with technocratic societies, is that they'll roll out an ID system, they'll roll out a payment system that's completely digital, and then if you spend too much, well, we can't have you spending that. We got to have you spend less on junk food and more on healthy food. And if you don't, well, we're going to fine you. We're going to take your money from you, because if you get government payments from us, we get to tell you exactly how to spend them.
Yep. And let me just tell you, the way they want you to spend them is not the way you want to spend them.
Exactly. You can't buy weed in their permission-based society.
Oh, let's see. That's the end of that article. What should we talk about next? Riley brought in, I believe, a third article.
I did.
I can find that, if you'll allow me a moment. I really like lately the Activist Post, though. It was purchased by, oh dang it, I forgot the guy's name. He runs the Macroaggressions podcast, which is a really good podcast. And
I haven't listened to that one yet.
Yeah, he bought it and has got some new writers, kind of rejuvenating the site. It's been around for a while, but it's under new management, and I'm impressed with what they're doing over there.
Good.
So we've got one here from CBS News. St. Louis tornado sirens didn't sound in deadly storm. Now a city commissioner has been placed on leave. Oh no, not on leave.
How dare they put the commissioner on leave?
St. Louis's emergency management chief has been placed on administrative leave, the city's mayor said, after sirens meant to sound during a tornado warning failed to be activated ahead of Friday's deadly twister.
They're talking about not the most recent Friday, but the Friday before, so May 16th.
This article was updated on May 21st. So, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sarah Russell, commissioner of the City Emergency Management Agency in St. Louis, will remain on paid administrative leave as an external investigation proceeds into what went wrong. St. Louis Mayor Kara Spencer already ordered an internal probe in the immediate aftermath of the siren failure. When National Weather Service radar indicated that a tornado touched down between 2:30 and 2:50 p.m. local time, it initially struck near central St. Louis before ripping through the area, with officials estimating some 5,000 people were affected. 5 people in St. Louis were killed in the severe weather, officials said. Spencer described it as one of the worst storms, absolutely. There is a system of 60 outdoor sirens stationed around St. Louis, which are meant to be activated once the National Weather Service issues a tornado warning for the area, as it did on Friday. There are 2 places where they can be activated, the CEMA office and the fire department. According to Spencer's office, which announced Russell's leave Tuesday, the commissioner was attending an off-site workshop with other emergency management staff when the tornado warning came down, and that prevented them from activating the sirens from their agency's main building about a half-mile away. Huh. That sounds reminiscent, having deja vu. Almost like, oh, they couldn't respond appropriately on September 11th, 2001 because they were busy with all these trainings about what happens if terrorists hijack planes and crash them into buildings.
How convenient that they're doing a NORAD training drill on 9/11.
For the exact same thing that's actually happening on that day.
Yep.
Huh.
Convenient. Makes you question the original story, doesn't it?
So, not to say that this tornado siren failure is of the same category. It's just reminiscent of that day. Russell instead contacted the fire department to activate the sirens, but the directive was ambiguous, the mayor said. Her office released a recording of Russell's call to the department, in which she confirms they are aware of the NWS warning and briefly clarifies the timing of it before saying, "Okay, you got the sirens?" The person at the fire department replies, "Yes, ma'am," and the call ends. The direction was not clear, Spencer said at a news conference Wednesday morning about the phone call. Russell did not clearly direct the person at the fire department to press the button to activate the sirens, she said, adding, "It's my understanding that the button was not pushed." However, even if someone had pressed the button at the fire department, city officials learned Tuesday that the button was not working.
Oh.
So even if they had pressed it, it wasn't working.
How convenient or inconvenient? I mean, I would say that government, don't expect good quality service from government. They're just terrible. I mean,
yeah. If I'm forced to drop a few more coincidence coins into the coincidence jar here on this one article, I might start thinking this is one of those inside jobs.
Yeah.
Work to repair the button began Tuesday afternoon and is expected to be completed within days, Spencer's office said.
It takes them that long to repair a button?
The button, this must be a very complicated button.
Must be.
The button at the CEMA office was functioning, and fire department personnel will be stationed there 24/7 to activate the sirens if needed, the office said. Spencer also signed an executive order Tuesday to change the siren activation protocol, putting the fire department solely in charge of activating the warning system, while the standard operating procedure for activating the siren says the primary activation point is located at the fire department headquarters. The de facto protocol had been that CEMA would activate the system at its office and contact the fire department if it could not. With the mayor's executive order, this lack of clarity has now been eliminated, Spencer's office said. Until a permanent replacement for Russell is found, St. Louis Fire Captain John Walk will serve as the interim emergency management commissioner. All right. There you go. I don't know. That was a silly story. I'm very sorry for anybody in St. Louis who was negatively affected by this tornado.
I am too, and it's really tragic that, your government, the people you supposedly elected and supposedly trust to keep you safe, did not keep you safe.
Yeah, this article almost reads like a comedy of errors.
Yeah.
And that's pretty standard operating procedure for local bureaucracy ranging all the way up to, federal bureaucracies and international organizations. Although I might take that back about the international organizations. These guys have their game together. They're definitely getting stuff done.
Yeah.
Not good stuff, but stuff. Alrighty. Let's see what else we can get into.
I'm sure we could find a lot of stuff to get into. The world is a crazy place.
We got a win for Trump on the legal status of 350,000 Venezuelan migrants.
I heard about that ruling. We could talk about that.
We got one from David Bell at the Brownstone Institute. The WHO cannot be saved. That might be fun. I really have a distaste for the WHO.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the World Health Organization either, because they don't care about your health. They care about, pretending they care about your health.
Let's get into this one and see what it holds. The WHO cannot be saved. Again, this comes to us from David Bell and Ramesh Thakur at Brownstone Institute. As humans, we commonly consider ourselves, our beliefs, and our work of particular importance. It is not surprising, then, that when we form institutions, those within them seek to promote the institution's relevance, expand their work, and centralize decision-making within their own particularly important group. Few want to divest power and resources, let alone put themselves and their colleagues out of a job. This fatal flaw infects all bureaucracies, from local to national and regional to international. It is unsurprising, then, that the World Health Organization, an international health bureaucracy of over 9,000 staff, a quarter of them in Geneva, should suffer the same problems. The WHO was originally intended primarily to transfer capacity to struggling states emerging from colonialism and address their higher burdens of disease but lower administrative and financial capabilities. This prioritized fundamentals like sanitation, good nutrition, and competent health services that had brought long life to people in wealthier countries. Its focus now is more on stocking shelves with manufactured commodities. Its budget, staffing, and remit expand as actual country need and infectious disease mortality decline over the years. While major gaps in underlying health equality remain and were recently exacerbated by the WHO's COVID-19 policies, the world is a very different place from 1948 when it was formed. Rather than acknowledging progress, however, we are told we are simply in an interpandemic period, and the WHO and its partners should be given ever more responsibility and resources to save us from the next hypothetical outbreak, like Disease X. Increasingly dependent on specified funding from national and private interests, heavily invested in profitable biotech fixes rather than the underlying drivers of good health, the WHO looks more and more like other public-private partnerships that channel taxpayer money to the priorities of private industry. Pandemics happen, but a proven natural one of major impact on life expectancy has not happened since pre-antibiotic era Spanish flu over 100 years ago, which it's arguable that was a proven natural one, as it says in this article.
Yeah.
That may in fact have been the product of an early vaccine campaign.
Interesting take. Why do you think that?
Well, because they were testing a new vaccine on U.S. military, on Army soldiers.
It's interesting that the military is a common
and they didn't
place
have
to test vaccines.
They didn't have such sophisticated ways of tracking the spread of things.
Yeah.
Back then, but the best they could do made it like the best you could do posthumously by going through articles or documents that exist from that time. It looks like the spread did in fact centralized around a few military bases in America.
Mm-hmm.
And they just call it the Spanish flu because, to demonize the other. But yeah, it looks like it started at American military bases. The best I can tell. That's not conclusive. There's just not good enough documentation on it. Anyways, we all understand that better nutrition, sewers, potable water, living conditions, antibiotics, and modern medicines protect us. Yet we are told to be ever more fearful of the next outbreak. We're told to be ever more fearful of the next everything.
We are. The next economic crash, the next whatever.
COVID happened, but it overwhelmingly affected the elderly in Europe and the Americas. Moreover, it looks, as the U.S. government now makes clear, almost certainly a laboratory mistake by the very pandemic industry that is promoting the WHO's new approach. This is interesting that this is they're just talking about it now. That moreover, it looks as the U.S. government now makes clear almost certainly a laboratory mistake by the very pandemic industry that it is promoting. Right. So that's the lab leak thing, right? But they still want to call it a mistake and not like a, air quotes mistake. Collaborating on health internationally remains popular, as it should be in a heavily independent world. It also makes sense to prepare for severe rare events. Most of us buy insurance, but we don't exaggerate flood risk in order to expand the flood insurance industry, as anything we spend is money taken from our other needs. Public health is no different. If we were deciding a new WHO now, no sane model would base its funding and direction primarily on the interests of advice of those who profit from illness. Rather, these would be based on accurate estimates of localized risk of the big killer diseases. The WHO was once independent of private interests, mostly core-funded, and able to set rational priorities. That WHO is gone. Over the past 80 years, the world has also changed. It makes no sense now to base thousands of health staff in one of the world's most expensive and healthiest cities. And it makes no sense in a technologically advancing world to keep centralizing control there. The WHO was structured in a time when most mail still went by steamship. It stands increasingly as an anomaly to its mission and to the world in which it works. Would a network of regional bodies tied to their local context not be more responsive and effective than a distant, disconnected, and centralized bureaucracy of thousands? Amidst the broader turmoil roiling the post-1945 international liberal order, the recent U.S. notice of withdrawal from the WHO presents a unique opportunity to rethink the type of international health institution the world needs, how that should operate, where, for what purpose, and for how long. What should be the use by date of an international institution? In the WHO's case, either health is getting better as countries build capacity and it should be downsizing, or health is getting worse, in which case the model has failed and we need something more fit for its purpose. The Trump administration's actions are an opportunity to rebase international health cooperation on widely recognized standards of ethics and human rights. Countries and populations should be back in control, and those seeking profit from illness should have no role in decision-making. The WHO, at nearly 80 years old, comes from a bygone era and is increasingly estranged from its world. We can do better. Fundamental change in the way we manage international health cooperation will be painful, but ultimately healthy. I don't know. The author of this article seems to want the WHO to go away, but they put far more stock in it than I do. To me, it could just go away. I don't see what would be painful about that at all.
Well, I think the painful thing for most people is the WHO is seen to them as this institution that talks about health around the world and the conditions around the world, but yet I think if it's decentralized, that might be a better approach, because then each nation, state, or whatever could deal with their own stuff, and then they could coordinate, communicate with each other. You don't need a central authority to do that. You can talk to each other.
Mm-hmm. And it sounded like earlier in this article he was trying to point out this phenomenon that Ernest Hancock likes to talk about, where anytime you start a group, eventually the health of the group becomes more important than the reason you started it.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like that phenomenon may have crept its way into the WHO and has added to its uselessness. Although, I don't know, maybe it's not useless, but it's certainly not doing good things for the world. It could go away, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with you there. I think the WHO is one of these organizations that, it may appear to do some good, but it's really wasting time and money.
Mm-hmm. Either wasting time and money or outright damaging societies through things like their recommendations for COVID-19 protocols.
Yeah.
So most of which were absolutely ridiculous and did a lot of harm and no actual good. You can give us a call. Let us know if you disagree with anything we said. If you want to just change the subject, talk about something else. This is Free Talk Live. That's the point of the show. So give us a call. It's 603-283-6160. Again, that's 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
As if Amazon Prime wasn't worth it just for the free shipping and hundreds of movies, thousands of TV shows, and millions of songs on Alexa, I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Browse Amazon Warehouse for deeply discounted open box deals on computers, TVs, unlocked phones, lots of returned merchandise, and Amazon Renewed sells refurbished merch. In both cases, like new, and guaranteed replacement or refund for 90 days if your purchase doesn't work as expected. I could not tell that several refurbished items I've bought weren't new. Manufacturers like Apple and Samsung also sell refurbs on their own websites. Most come with a new battery, and they carry a 1-year warranty, so they're new to you. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
Protection. Eleutheromania. The insatiable desire for freedom.
Filibuster. Police state.
It's the new 3-song heavy metal EP from Captain Kickass. Available now on your favorite music app or get it directly from CaptainKickass.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. US President Donald Trump's trade war continued to dominate much of the news for the week. Multiple countries are trying to do deals with the US to reduce or eliminate tariffs. On Friday, though, he said he would impose a 50% tariff on goods coming from the European Union. It came ahead of a planned meeting between US and EU trade representatives. FSN's William Denslow sent this report from Brussels.
Donald Trump's bombshell announcement comes as the EU has reportedly provided a list of concessions to Washington with the goal of de-escalating trade tensions. According to Politico, the proposal included plans to boost spending in areas such as energy and deepen ties in fields like 5 and 6G technology. But President Trump stated on social media that negotiations aren't progressing, and the US is expected to reject the European Commission's latest proposal.
2 Israeli embassy staff members were killed in a shooting outside a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. this week in what appeared to be a planned anti-Semitic attack. The suspect was arrested at the scene. Police said he was not on their radar. Everson's Tony Waterman sent this report from the scene of the shooting.
There has been a very heavy police presence here, investigators inside trying to work out those details. A suspect in this case has been identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago. FBI agents are there right now going through what they believe to be the apartment he was living in, looking for any sort of clues as to what motivated him. One thing we do know, officials are saying that after the shooting took place, he went inside the museum, and eyewitnesses say that he tried to pass himself off as an eyewitness himself before security officials detained him. And as he was going into custody, officials say that he said, "Free, free Palestine." So there seems to be a connection, perhaps, between what is going on in Israel, what has been happening in Gaza, and the shooting that took place here.
This week, US President Donald Trump ambushed his South African counterpart, Cyril Ramaphosa, in the Oval Office by playing a video and amplifying false claims that white South Africans have been victims of genocide. FSN's Kate Fisher was watching the argument unfold in Washington.
President Ramaphosa came to the White House seeking to discuss trade and critical minerals. Instead, he faced a televised ambush. The meeting started with pleasantries and discussions about Gulf and foreign policy. But then the tone changed. President Trump insisting on false claims of land seizures and mass killings of white Afrikaners, and largely dismissing Mr. Ramaphosa's attempt to describe the situation in his own country.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. A warning this week from US retailer Target after it posted weaker-than-expected first-quarter results. It blamed economic conditions as well as changes to its diversity, equity and inclusion policies. FSN's Mitch McCann was poring over the numbers and sent this report from New York.
Target stock price on the New York Stock Exchange took a hammering on Wednesday after news the company missed its first-quarter revenue estimates and cut its full-year sales outlook. Sales fell nearly 3% year-on-year. Transactions in-store and on its website fell by 2.4%, and the average spend of its customers during online and in-store visits also fell by 1.4%. So a slate of bad news for Target. Target has identified a number of reasons for the large slump, including declining consumer confidence, uncertainty about the impact of tariffs, and a customer revolt earlier in the year. That was because Target announced it was scaling back its DEI efforts, leading to a very expensive boycott from customers.
This week, the UK, France and Canada threatened Israel with concrete actions over its expansion of military operations in Gaza. The joint statement condemned the humanitarian crisis in the besieged enclave and Israel's response to what the three countries called the intolerable level of human suffering. FSN's Simon Gaitan sent this report from London.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer joined French President Emmanuel Macron and newly elected Canadian Premier Mark Carney in issuing a joint statement calling on Israel to stop its military operations in Gaza and immediately allow humanitarian aid to enter the territory. While reiterating condemnation of Hamas's attack on October 7th, demanding the release of all remaining hostages and supporting Israel's right to defend itself, the statement strongly opposes the expansion of Israel's military actions in Gaza, calling the escalation, quote, wholly disproportionate, and Israel's announcement to allow limited food into Gaza wholly inadequate.
And that's the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
It's being called the must-have tech gadget of the year. The Samsung Apex, which hits shelves today, streams video into your left eye, internet into your right eye, and sucks your dick all at the same time. Samsung spokesman Neil Werner is projecting the biggest sales in his company's history.
Are you kidding me? This thing does everything, plus it sucks your dick, all right? And I know what you're thinking. And yes, ladies, there is a version for you that eats you out. Hanging up Apple, we beat you the punch on this one. Samsung's got you by the balls.
In spite of the almost $1,000 price tag, customers are raving about the device.
For my career, I do need the internet and TV, and my dick sucked all the time.
I already have a TV and a girlfriend and a laptop, but to have all those in one device would be really nice.
Even a run of bad press about unsafe working conditions in the Apex factory in India have not dampened sales projections.
Yeah. Factory, switch up, blah, blah. How about you just plug your eyeball straight into the internet and get your dick sucked?
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. The phone number to get on the air with us is 603-283-6160. You can call in and talk about pretty much whatever you'd like to, as long as it's within the FCC guidelines.
Yeah, don't use certain words on the radio. Otherwise, we'll just have to let you go.
Yep.
We don't want to do that.
Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny Liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com.
I'm wearing my Free Talk Live hoodie. It's still kind of chilly outside, even though it's almost June.
Yeah, it's this week has been definitely hoodie weather.
Yeah, for sure.
Highs in like the 50s, which is kind of chilly for this time of year.
Yep, it is. So before we go on into anything else, I wanted to mention that Bitcoin Pizza Day was this week, and it was awesome because here in Keene we have a pizza shop.
Little Zoe's.
Yeah, Little Zoe's. They take crypto and
they make good pizza.
Oh, their pizza is absolutely phenomenal. It's really good. And if you ever come to New Hampshire, I'd recommend Little Zoe's. And
especially if you want to spend crypto, stop by there. They will take your Bitcoin and trade it for a pizza.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic experience.
Yep. So on Thursday, a few of us went to Little Zoe's and we got pizza, and I paid with Dash this time. And
I love paying with Dash. It's so fast.
It is. It's really nice. It's perfect. It's great. And the reason why I love paying with crypto is it's phenomenal to pay without using the dollar. It's phenomenal currency. It's awesome to come here and be like, I don't have to spend my dollars. I can go to a shop and pay with some, as some people would like to call it, magic internet money. And so, 13 of us or so went to Little Zoe's. It was rainy that day, so we picked up our pizza. We ordered our pizza, picked it up, and came back. Actually, we came back here because Bonnie Freeman, who lives here at the house where the studio is, hosted us, and we had a nice gathering. It was lovely to spend time with libertarians we occasionally see from time to time. And so, if you're ever in New Hampshire on May 22nd, come to Bitcoin Pizza Day.
I don't know if this calculation was done, but it's always fun to find out. So Bitcoin Pizza Day is kind of an annual holiday for Bitcoiners. It signifies the first day that a transaction was made with Bitcoin in exchange for tangible goods.
Yeah.
Somebody wanted pizza and only had Bitcoins. And so they got on a forum and said, somebody ordered me a pizza and I'll send you these Bitcoins.
And apparently someone wanted Bitcoin, and Bitcoin was subjectively valuable to them. I think 10,000 Bitcoins was spent for that pizza.
I think it was 2 pizzas and 20,000 Bitcoins.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. Okay, so the easy answer is saying 15 years ago, a software developer paid for 2 pizzas with 10,000 Bitcoin. Those pies will be worth $1.1 billion today.
Wow. Wow. Dang, I wish I had gotten back into Bitcoin early because then I'd be cashing out right now.
You know,
I'd be the Bitcoin Lambo man.
First time I bought any amount of Bitcoin, the price for one whole Bitcoin was $350.
I remember those days.
I've just been unable to hold on to any significant amount of it.
Yeah.
It's just too much fun to spend.
It really is. And there's something about being able to spend money that isn't tied to the government that feels so good.
Mm-hmm. So this is the final hour of Free Talk Live for tonight. If you'd like to call, you can. You've got Riley and I on tonight. We're both ex-Mormons, so you could ask us your crazy,
burning questions about Mormons.
Mormon questions.
That would be really fun to talk about Mormonism.
And we'll do our best to answer if we can.
Because, Stu and I, even though we came from Mormonism, we may disagree on our approach to how we would respond to, criticisms about the church or the church itself or whatever.
Yep. The Mormons are about as homogenized a group as I can imagine anywhere on the planet.
Yeah.
But even within the Mormons, they still have individual preference and differences.
There definitely are differences within Mormonism. I mean, there are these groups within Mormonism that are really fascinated and really hitting heavy the idea that we live in the last days, and they're just studying the last days and the quote-unquote prophecies and trying to figure out when all the events are going to take place. And that has led to some really insane people doing insane things. Like, for example, there's a murder trial of a woman by the name of Lori Vallow Daybell, who murdered her own children. Well, didn't murder them herself. She had someone else do the murders. So essentially what had happened is in July of 2019, her late husband was murdered by her brother, and her brother claimed it was self-defense. This was done because she believed that her husband, the man that she had killed, was a zombie and possessed by an evil spirit. And so the only way to get rid of that spirit was to kill him. And all of this because she met this Mormon author, and she's Mormon herself. She met this Mormon author who was writing about the last days and his supposed near-death experiences and visions about what's going to happen in the last days, and they bonded over that, and he was selling his books, and she met him in 2018, and they were having this love affair, and all of a sudden they're having this affair with each other, and she's killing her husband and hoping to get the payout from life insurance, but the man planned ahead and had the life insurance given to his sister. But that's over time, this woman and Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell got together, and Chad Daybell murdered his wife, or had his wife murdered, but he claimed it was a pulmonary embolism or something like that. And so his wife dies in October 2019 under suspicious circumstances.
Wait, this guy killed his wife, and he said she had a pulmonary embolism?
Yep.
Yeah. like he had the equipment to diagnose that properly?
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. And so, a couple weeks after his wife dies, he and Lori Vallow were in Hawaii dancing on the beach, singing and playing the ukulele. So, and Lori had 2 children at this time. Actually, she has 3. But her oldest son is married and out of the house. So her 2 youngest children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. So JJ Vallow has autism and had, severe mental disabilities, and was killed in September. Both of her children were killed in September of 2019 and buried, get this, in Chad Daybell's yard.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, well, we don't have to tell anybody. No one's going to know. We'll just skip out of the mainland U.S. and go on the beach in Hawaii. But yet there were people who cared about these kids, like their grandparents and things like that, were caring about these kids and wondering where the hell they were. And so they couldn't get away with this murder. And it's just interesting to me that these people were going to the temple and doing whatever goes on in the temple, which, I've been through a few times, and I don't know if you've been to the temples too to do temple work, but
I have not had my temple endowments. I've done baptisms for the dead there.
Well, I've had my temple endowment, so I'm not going to comment on the ceremony out of respect for the religious practices of Latter-day Saints.
I would comment away if I had been through it. I've heard some iterations of it. It's been changed quite a few times.
It definitely has been changed. I don't know. I just don't want to comment on too much.
They keep having to morph it away from the Freemasonic ceremonies.
They definitely want to drop the Masonic influences of the ceremony because, it's I don't know, I guess not in vogue to have a Masonic ceremony and make people freak out over a Masonic ceremony. But anyway, so they were going through the temple and doing all these things, pretending they were temple worthy, which means you have to pay tithing to the church and live the law of chastity, which is, being married and having sex when you're married and not breaking that covenant with your spouse or whatever.
No drinking.
Yeah, no drinking.
Coffee, no smoking, no drugs.
No murdering. And yet, here these kids
no
are.
Murdering.
Here these kids are, buried in this guy's yard. And, well, he's been sentenced, and he's on death row in Idaho, and she also was convicted, but she's not on death row in Idaho. She's got 2 trials. She was convicted of the crimes in Idaho, and now she's being convicted of the crimes in Arizona, namely the killing of her ex-husband and the shooting or conspiring to shoot another guy. So
that's a wild story.
It is a wild, wild story. And I can't believe that some people would go on a killing spree. But when you bring religion into it, it's insane. It's absolutely insane that
it reminds me of the Lafferty murders.
Oh, yeah, the Lafferty murders. They're insane, too.
This was a case of one older brother in the Lafferty family deciding that he was the new prophet of God. And he started giving revelations, which resulted in the murder of one of the brother's wives, who was understandably skeptical about this guy's, claim to prophecy.
Yeah. I'm skeptical of any claim to prophecy, really. Even if it's Russell Nelson claiming he's a prophetic man, I'm just skeptical of anybody these days.
Yeah. So the Lafferty murders, that's a wild story, and then
it is a wild story.
And then an even more wild story is the Mark Hoffman forgery and murder story.
Yeah, that's another wild story.
This guy was so good at forging documents. He had in fact convinced the Library of Congress that his copy of Oath of a Freeman, which would arguably be the most rare document to ever be produced on the American continent, he had a copy, tried to sell it to the Library of Congress, and they were not able to detect any fraudulent qualities of this document. They didn't buy it because his asking price was way too high, and I don't know, they must have been suspicious otherwise anyways. I would have been suspicious too, because not only was he lucky enough to find one, but he actually found 2 of these. So anyways, he was trying to sell it for way too much money. Yeah. But he had a long history of forging a lot of documents and selling them to the Mormon Church and to other rare document collectors. And when he got his head in above water and it looked like he was going to be found out, he decided he was going to bomb some people.
Yep.
And he had pulled off a couple bombing murders, and then succeeded in blowing himself up inside of his car.
Yeah.
And so now that guy, now it gets even more wild. That guy is in a prison cell at the Point of the Mountain prison in Utah, and he shares that cell with the older Lafferty brother.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's a small world in Mormon land when you're both committing fraudulent acts and pretending you have some magic authority to do things, and you're finding sacred documents or telling people, I'm the new prophet now.
Yep. So there's a few of the weird Mormon murders.
Yeah.
I think my favorite one though that I got to mention here is Orrin Porter Rockwell's attempted assassination of Lilburn Boggs.
Do you think Orrin Porter Rockwell actually tried to assassinate Lilburn W. Boggs?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
That was Orrin Rockwell. He Yeah, all the evidence lines right up.
Okay.
And that like.
I'm not sure if I'm convinced of that, but go ahead.
The pistol they found in the mud was stolen from a local shop where Porter had been poking around just a day or two before. He was in town on business, and after the assassination was back in Nauvoo, Illinois, in about as fast a time as it would be possible for him to go from the one place to the other. Too many things line up to say that it was definitely Orrin Porter Rockwell who shot Lilburn Boggs in his face while he was just sitting peacefully in his own home.
Well, Mormons probably felt like they were justified in trying to do so because the same man wrote on some magic paper with magic words saying these people should be exterminated or driven from the state.
Yes, the Mormon Extermination Order, which was the result of some very bad relationships between the Mormons and the local Missourians.
Yeah. I don't know. I think both parties...
Both sides were at fault, definitely.
Oh, for sure. And it was just horrendous
because Joseph Smith had this idea of what he called consecration, which meant that Mormons could just go and steal things from the locals. And turns out the locals didn't like that very much. And they kind of retaliated with murder, such as the Haun's Mill Massacre. And that wasn't very nice either. And so, you just had a lot of not very nice things happening back and forth until it culminated in the arrest of Joseph Smith and the Mormon Extermination Order.
So what's interesting to me about Mormonism and all of its history is it lines up to tell you that the Mormon Church is an interesting development because you have this guy, Joseph Smith, who, supposedly saw God and started this church and supposedly translated the book. And, there are a lot of people that have had good experiences reading the Book of Mormon. I mean, I have. When I was a kid, I read the book and I found some really cool heroes and some really great scriptures and the really great passages in the Book of Mormon that I really like to this day still that kind of inspire me.
Yep, it's got some decent archetypes, and it's not the worst written story ever if you can get past all the "and it came to pass" phrases.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me that Mormonism creates people that seem to be better off in society. They supposedly are less depressed, but Utah is antidepressant capital, I think, in the United States.
It is.
But then again, there are Christian states other than Utah that are following suit. So I don't know if it's the religious aspect of what is happening to create this depression epidemic or what's going on there.
I think it's just cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Cognitive dissonance can make you depressed if you believe in something that's not true because whatever reason, probably an emotional one.
Yeah.
Just stop. It's not gonna leaving Mormonism is an uncomfortable thing for most people.
It's hard,
especially when you're born into the covenant, as they say.
Yep.
And all of your family and everybody you knew when you were growing up that loved you and helped you, they all told you this thing is real. And it's obviously not. It's so verifiably false. It's so far from being anywhere near anything that could possibly be true that you either deal with a cognitive dissonance or you just give it up.
Yeah.
One good study of the Book of Abraham from Joseph Smith's Egyptomania, where he bought some papyri and decided he was going to fill in the ripped off spot.
But there are some missing scrolls that we don't have.
One good look into that Book of Abraham will let you know that this guy was just full of it, man.
Yeah. But, that being said, there are some things that I value from the church, like community. Having extra community is really nice, and having some extra friends is really helpful.
Yeah. I can't argue with that. They got that connectedness on point. And my youth was deeply enriched by the Mormon experience.
Mine too.
As far as I understand it, Boy Scouts is not anything like it is in Utah in the rest of the country, or in, I guess I should say, because the Mormons have stronghold cultures outside of Salt Lake as well. There's a large amount of Mormons, for example, in Phoenix, in Henderson, Nevada, places like that. So if you grow up in one of these places where you're largely surrounded by Mormons, and there are, a lot of youth and everything to fill up the scouting program, it's all facilitated through the Mormon church in that area. And these things go really well. And you have some fantastic camps and activities that teach you a lot of things.
Oh, man. Did you ever go camping with Boy Scouts?
Yeah, a lot of camps.
Me too.
And
I've done a 50-mile hike and a 20 or 10-mile hike or whatever.
And there was no sexual inappropriateness from any of my counselors.
Yeah, and
leaders.
And I'm not saying that didn't happen in scouting at all, because I'm sure it did.
I'm sure it did. Never happened to me.
You and I were lucky.
Where I saw.
Yeah, you and I were lucky enough to have good quote-unquote leaders that didn't assault us.
Yeah, well, at least not bad. I don't know if I'd call them all good.
Yeah.
So some of them were kind of jerks. But ultimately the Mormon community and it's an interesting thing, because it only holds together because of this cognitive dissonance, because of so many people lying to themselves, and but it provides such a wonderful experience. I still can't condone it just because it's based on a lie. And again, to each their own, and I fault nobody for following the religion of their choice, so long as they don't go around messing up other people's lives.
I think that's the point that I want to emphasize, is that I firmly believe that you have the right to practice your religion as you see fit. And the moment you begin preaching at me and demanding that I follow your religion over my religion, whatever that may be, is the moment I say, no, you have to demonstrate that your religion is more valuable to me than mine before I'll join you.
Yep.
So you can't force your religious preferences on me, and religious preferences do not allow you, no matter who you are in relationship to me, to control my life. For example, if you were a spiritual leader over me and you were demanded that you had the right to know if I was sleeping with my girlfriends and we were doing inappropriate things with each other, I would tell you don't have that right. Yeah. Because I don't have that right to do the same to you.
And for the listeners' information, if you're Mormon, your bishop will definitely take you into a room alone without anybody there as a youth, and it will ask you very uncomfortable questions about your sexual relationship with others and with yourself.
Indeed. Indeed.
And that should never happen. That borders on child abuse, whether or not they take it to an inappropriate place.
Yeah.
Give us a call. Let us know what you think about all of this, or just change the subject and talk about what you want to. The phone number is 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join today.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. US President Donald Trump's trade war continued to dominate much of the news for the week. Multiple countries are trying to do deals with the US to reduce or eliminate tariffs. On Friday, though, he said he would impose a 50% tariff on goods coming from the European Union. It came ahead of a planned meeting between US and EU trade representatives. FSN's William Denslow sent this report from Brussels.
Donald Trump's bombshell announcement comes as the EU has reportedly provided a list of concessions to Washington with the goal of de-escalating trade tensions. According to Politico, the proposal included plans to boost spending in areas such as energy and deepen ties in fields like 5 and 6G technology. But President Trump stated on social media that negotiations aren't progressing, and the US is expected to reject the European Commission's latest proposal.
2 Israeli embassy staff members were killed in a shooting outside a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. this week in what appeared to be a planned anti-Semitic attack. The suspect was arrested at the scene. Police said he was not on their radar. FSN's Tony Waterman sent this report from the scene of the shooting.
There has been a very heavy police presence here, investigators inside trying to work out those details. A suspect in this case has been identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago. FBI agents are there right now going through what they believe to be the apartment he was living in, looking for any sort of clues as to what motivated him. One thing we do know, officials are saying that after the shooting took place, he went inside the museum, and eyewitnesses say that he tried to pass himself off as an eyewitness himself before security officials detained him. And as he was going into custody, officials say that he said, "Free, free Palestine." So there seems to be a connection, perhaps, between what is going on in Israel, what has been happening in Gaza, and the shooting that took place here.
This week, US President Donald Trump ambushed his South African counterpart, Cyril Ramaphosa, in the Oval Office by playing a video and amplifying false claims that white South Africans have been victims of genocide. FSN's Kate Fisher was watching the argument unfold in Washington.
President Ramaphosa came to the White House seeking to discuss trade and critical minerals. Instead, he faced a televised ambush. The meeting started with pleasantries and discussions about golf and foreign policy. But then the tone changed. President Trump insisting on false claims of land seizures and mass killings of white Afrikaners, and largely dismissing Mr. Ramaphosa's attempt to describe the situation in his own country.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, talk radio you control. You can get your thoughts on the air. This is our final segment of the night.
That's right, moments remain.
The phone number here is 603-283-6160, so give us a call. The largest libertarian camping festival, the Porcupine Freedom Festival, is being held at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire this June 16th through the 22nd. PorcFest is the flagship annual event of the Free State Project. This year will feature speakers like Jacob Hornberger of the Future of Freedom Foundation, who is going to discuss Ian Freeman's case, Bob Murphy, Joel Salatin, and our own Jay Noon. Come the weekend before, June 13th to 15th, for the laid-back pre-PorcFest decentralized party, ForkFest. You can go to PorcFest with a P as in Paul.com and ForkFest with an F as in firetruck.party to learn more. We hope to see you there. In the studio tonight, it's Stu.
And Riley. Before we move on to anything else, I just want to say that, for the record, I have been going back to church a little bit for community. And if any of the people here I go to church with are listening to the show, I do want to say that I enjoy your company. I enjoy attending church. I enjoy having community. And that means a lot to me.
Yep. The Mormon Church is definitely a place to go if you want a pre-built community ready to go that will give you all the support that you could hope for from such a community.
But the thing is, don't get so dependent on that support and that ideology to govern your life. Associate with different people. Don't be afraid of the world outside.
And also, it doesn't come without some level of politicking.
Yeah.
If you are unable to make a single friend within your ward, you won't get much support from that community.
Yep.
So, yep. There's pros and cons to the Mormon religion.
There are, just like with any religion.
For me, it's not true, though, and I can't swallow it as truth.
Yeah. I can understand that. I'm kind of the same way, honestly. Like, there are aspects I could see as potentially being true, like a belief in God or the belief that, the scripture canon isn't closed necessarily, that if there were a God, he'd want to add more scripture to his canon. But other than that, the whole story of Joseph Smith seeing God and him thinking he's got to start a church and translating a book from ancient metal plates is far-fetched in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a wild story.
Yeah, a very wild story. He was definitely into the occult, for sure.
So much fun in all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of occult connections there. Did you know about Vermont wood scrape? This was
I did not.
I read briefly about this. This was one of these tent revival religious events in the woods of Vermont that was it was kind of a free love sort of nudist kind of weird orgy religious experience kind of cult thing. And Joseph Smith's dad was very much part of this until the locals got caught wind of it and chased them all out of town.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that.
So, yeah.
Well, I think that Joseph Smith's dad also dabbled in drinking alcohol.
Oh, he was
bit.
a raging alcoholic.
Yeah.
Definitely had alcohol problems.
So I wonder if Joseph Smith had any daddy issues or mommy issues. I mean, we seem to think that families were close back then, but, I would think that families were also trauma bonded in a way because the world was harsh in the 1800s. You had to really work hard.
Yeah, one of the early trauma bonding events that the churches loves to talk about is Joseph Smith's boyhood leg operation.
Oh man! Yeah.
They had to scrape away some of the bone even, and they like to tell this story because apparently Joseph Smith sat up on the table very calm and told his mom that she shouldn't be in the room.
Yeah.
And then he refused even one drop of alcohol, and then he just suffered through the surgery.
Yeah.
That sounds like somebody who's deeply traumatized to go into that level of shock and just act that way.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Kind of a situation, he was definitely, he had mom trauma.
Yeah, and I think we like to, at least when we were back in Mormonism, I think we liked to venerate our heroes and think, oh my gosh, what a strong man, what a strong boy he was, refusing alcohol to dull the pain of the wound. But
yeah. He got plenty drunk later, so it wasn't that he was a teetotaler or anything.
Yeah, and he probably dabbled in theogenic substances too to have his visionary experiences.
Yeah, I'm of the belief that he was definitely into various psychedelic and entheogenic substances.
Yeah, I would believe that too. In fact, I think there are a number of cases, a number of supporting arguments to support that idea.
Yep. Well, I've got an article here from AP, reputable news source.
Definitely reputable news source.
Maybe not so much. Justice Department reaches deal to allow Boeing to avoid prosecution over 737 MAX crashes. The Justice Department has reached a deal with Boeing that will allow the airplane giant to avoid criminal prosecution for allegedly misleading U.S. regulators about the 737 MAX jetliner before two of the planes crashed and killed 346 people, according to court papers.
So the government is allowing Boeing to get away with killing people?
Sounds like it.
I guess when politicians and businessmen get in bed together, who knows what's going to result?
Yeah, get away with murder. Under the agreement in principle, which still needs to be finalized, Boeing would pay or invest more than $1.1 billion, including an additional $445 million for the crash victims' families, the Justice Department said. In return, the department has agreed to dismiss the fraud charge against Boeing, allowing the manufacturer to avoid a possible criminal conviction that could have jeopardized the company's status as a federal contractor, according to experts. Oh, that's too bad. Ultimately, in applying the facts, the law, and department policy, we are confident that this resolution is the most just outcome with practical benefits, a Justice Department spokesperson said in a statement. Nothing will diminish the victims' losses, but this resolution holds Boeing financially accountable, provides finality and compensation for the families, and makes an impact for the safety and future of air travelers. What a load of crap.
Yeah. And
it sounds like they put the price on being able to murder somebody at a little over $1 million, right? $445 million for the crash victims' families, 346 people killed. That's that's like $1.1 million per life.
Yeah, that's the price that they want to set for your life is $1.1 million. But these people aren't coming back from the dead, and their families are not going to be paid off, I'm sure.
Yeah, that seems a little insulting too, since you can spend more than that on one single house now.
Yeah.
Anyways, Boeing. Yeah, I'm not surprised that they weren't criminally convicted and stopped from being a government contractor. I don't know why I'm not shocked by that, but somehow it just leaves me unsurprised. Jeez. Well, we've got a caller on the line.
Excellent.
So let's go to the phones. On the screen, caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
What's going on? This is JR.
Hi, JR. What'd you call about?
All stuff. I don't know, Bitcoin, Mormons and Bitcoin, Bitcoins and Mormons.
I wish the Mormon Church would accept Bitcoin for tithing, but then again, I don't think they will because they want to have the dollar in their possession, I guess.
Well, why wouldn't they accept or upset even Bitcoin?
I don't know.
No, maybe because it doesn't go in the tithing envelope.
Yeah.
What?
I suppose you could drop a paper wallet in the tithing envelope.
Yeah, you probably could.
You saying Mormons is dumb? They don't know how to...
no, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that they're not going to accept Bitcoin as money because they don't view it as money.
Well, it's the same as saying Mormons is dumb. Yeah. Now you're not. Now you're not.
No, they're extremely savvy investors.
Yeah, I mean they have billions of dollars.
Then why are you calling them dumb?
That's not what I'm saying. You're straw manning. You're putting words in my mouth, dude.
Well, that's what I do best.
At least you admit it freely.
You don't want me to do the things that I do best? I'm supposed to do the things I do badly?
Maybe. Sometimes I do things that I do badly, and then I get better at them.
Yeah.
Like what? Making babies?
Like,
Making babies?
I don't know. Let me think about it.
Making babies?
No, I've always done that one well.
That's not the word on the street, man.
What's the word on the street?
Yeah, he's bad at making babies.
No.
Well, he has kids, as far as I know.
Well, how do you know? How do you know the particulars of him having kids? I mean, so many cereal box tops, or maybe help of a good Mormon friend.
Yeah, maybe I Elon Musked these children.
Elon Musk? I mean, you recruited Elon? Well, in that case, you'd be wealthy, man.
Yeah. Maybe I use surrogates or who knows?
Did he?
Maybe I just cloned them.
You don't think Elon did that all by himself?
Oh, I don't know what his involvement is, and I wouldn't speculate on that. From what I have heard, there's some weird stuff going on there, but that's not really my business.
Like what? Tell me more.
Oh, it just sounds like he wants to. He's, you know, how like Epstein had this idea to impregnate as many girls as he could to
Isn't that every
put more of his genes into the pool.
Well, isn't that every teenager's idea?
No, I don't know. No, wasn't mine. It was never one of my thoughts.
Shut up, Danny.
I never had a strong desire to increase my genes in the pool.
Yeah, I agree with Stu on this one.
All right. Well. And so let's see. Tell me some more about Mormonism that I didn't know.
Let's see. On stuff about Mormonism that most people don't know.
Shut up, Tammy.
Let's see. You get a patriarchal blessing.
Oh yeah.
That's an interesting thing because that tells you which of the lost tribes
you're supposedly
Judah
from.
that you came from.
Lost tribes Israel, not Judah.
So just so you know, all Mormons are Jews.
Yeah, all Mormons now claim to be part of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there some money in it for them?
It's just a spiritual belief they have.
Man.
Well, I think it comes back to Christianity, where Christianity claims that Christianity, of course, originated with Judaism, with Christ being a Jew. And so when Paul, the apostle of Jesus, started preaching to the quote-unquote Gentiles, he said that because of Christ's death and resurrection, now everyone is adopted into Christ's family so that they can participate fully in the blessings of being part of Israel. So Mormons just extend that a little more.
Does that have anything to do with the town of Virgin?
No.
No? Got to be a tie-in somehow, man.
Well, the town of Virgin was settled by Mormons, so there's that.
Well, why? Well, I figured that. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Well, why do they call it Virgin when they ain't none left in it?
There's a ghost town in Utah that bears my last name because my great-great-great-grandfather tried to settle a town and it didn't work. I think there's like an old broken-down corral still there.
Beavers, Utah?
No.
I've been to Beaver, Utah. I've driven through it.
Yeah, I've driven through there a bunch of times.
There's
ran out of gas at the gas station there. Had to panhandle for a few bucks.
Wow. There's a camp. There used to be a scout camp called Beaver High Adventure Base, and I'm trying to remember who am I. I think it may have been my dad who had so my older brothers probably went there as a scout camp, and so when I was little, we used to go there rather frequently to spend time with my dad during the summer when it was nice and cool in the mountains. So that's one memory I have.
Yep, there's some very nice mountains down there between kind of Beaver and Bryce Canyon.
Yeah, and Cedar.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the Cedar Breaks is gorgeous.
Duck Creek is pretty cool.
Yep. Duck Creek also was where a weird little Mormon experiment happened in communal living.
Oh.
Didn't work out.
What's it called?
Duck Creek. It's happened in the canyon above Cedar City. And, yeah, they had a little Mormon experiment in communism that, turned out like all communist experiments.
Yep, failed.
Yep. Some guys abscond with everything and everybody else gets screwed.
Duck Creek Village. Can you swim in Duck Creek, Utah?
It's is the town called Duck Creek? Is there a town there called Duck Creek?
I think so.
Duck Creek Village.
Yeah.
City in Utah.
Yeah, they probably call it Duck Creek though.
Yeah, they probably do.
They say creek. They don't say warsh though.
They say creek. What, are they from West Virginia?
No, I don't know. They just say creek. About half of them do, I guess I should say.
From West Virginia then.
About half of them say creek, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
They run around in the mountains hooping and hollering.
Probably.
Some of them.
Well, then they're from West Virginia.
Yeah. Mormons come from everywhere, man.
Yep. England, Wales.
Mormons be attracted anyway because it's got the word virgin in it.
I mean,
Mormons be all over that stuff.
By their own words, Mormons are white and delightsome. They're more fair than other people because of their
righteousness.
Righteousness directly affects your attractiveness, and the pigment of your skin, according to the Mormons.
So they tall, white, and handsome then.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Well, you can't see with your own eyes?
No, I'm blind. Didn't you know that?
What?
Ha! Gotcha.
Great tale. Man.
Riley is actually blind.
Yeah. It's not an act either.
I thought he was just blind to the truth. The fact.
All right.
Cascade Falls.
JR,
Cascade Falls.
anything else on your mind tonight?
Yeah, Cascade Falls Trailhead. You ever been there?
No, what'd you say?
Cascade Falls Trailhead.
Nope.
You don't understand a Mormon
Cascade
accent?
Paul?
Cascade Falls.
Cascade Falls?
Oh, Cascade Falls Trailhead. No. Hang on. Is that in Little Cottonwood Canyon?
No. No, it's Duck Creek.
I probably have been there.
Okay, nope. I don't think I've been there. I've driven up that canyon a ways, but...
This here Duck Creek Village looks like another Mormon stronghold I know of. Looks like Star Valley.
Wyoming?
Uh-huh.
Yep, probably a Mormon stronghold.
Yeah, here. Cascade Falls Trailhead. You ever been there?
No.
You already said no.
Nope.
Nope.
You got anything
Somewhere
else on
back
your
Duck
mind
Creek
tonight,
anyway.
JR?
Say what?
You got anything else on your mind tonight?
I never have anything on my mind. I just pull stuff out of my rear end.
Why would you do that? That's kind of gross, dude.
Yep. Thanks for the call. We appreciate it, even if you have no point in calling and you just want to say some stuff on the air. That's okay. It's Free Talk Live.
Preferably more important stuff than just blah, 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 blah.
Yep. Having a point is good, but...
Or using racist language, and we just drop you.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't tend to... don't tend to enjoy entertaining people's disparaging of other people's differences just simply because they're differences.
Yep.
If you got something, intelligent to say.
Mountain Meadows Massacre. Do you know anything about that?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. I've been to the monument a few times, and
I've been out there too, and there is an ominous feeling over that valley.
There is really an ominous feeling there. So, for listeners who don't know, the Mountain Meadows Massacre occurred in southern Utah, so near where I grew up. And basically what happened was there's a wagon train of pioneers heading to California who were not Mormons, and there were, I guess, insults flying about and, people not wanting to trade with each other because, there was a lot of fear going on. People were afraid of each other because the Missourians and ruffians and that the parties, the wagon train were like, oh, we're going to insult you and call your religion names and tell you we got the gun that killed Joe Smith and things like that to rile them up instead of being like, hey, let's strike a deal and make good trade neighbors. But no, they all have to get riled up. The Mormons have to be like, we got to defend our religious views. We've got this army coming from the United States government coming to put down our religious rebellion, if you will, or supposed religious rebellion. And so, tensions were really high at that time in the late 1850s in Utah.
Yeah, at this point, the Mormons were basically setting up to go to war with the United States government.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yep. The President Buchanan sent an army out to put down the rebellion.
And they were going to have a hard time getting in there because of the way the Mormons had snipers posted up in the canyons. It was going to be quite the arduous task for the U.S. Army to get these Mormons rooted up out of the Great Salt Lake Valley.
Right, and so the tensions are high, and at one point the leaders, the church leaders, said we gotta deal with this problem. So September 11th comes around, they're like, we'll just kind of befriend them, we'll pretend to have peace, and they're escorting the wagon train.
This is the Baker Fancher party.
Yep, the Baker Fancher party. I couldn't remember what it was, but they were escorting the Baker Fancher party because they were allegedly Paiute Indians out raiding, and they got to make sure they're safe. And all of a sudden, these Mormon people turn around and start killing people.
At least 120 people.
Except the children.
Except for most of the children. They possibly killed some of the children there.
Yeah.
The ones who lived were just, stolen.
Yeah, they wanted to make sure they were too young to remember. Which they actually probably did remember, but they couldn't put words to the memory, so it was just trauma for the rest of their lives.
This happened in 1857, and I was unaware that this is another September 11th event.
Yeah.
So there you go. Chalk another one up to 9/11, huh?
Yep, indeed. So, it's not to say that everyone who practices religion is a bad person, but religion can persuade people to do bad things.
Yep.
So if you're a religious person, do not be persuaded to do bad things by a man or a woman in a suit with a title. Follow your conscience. If your conscience says, I shouldn't participate in killing another human being in the name of my religion, then maybe you shouldn't participate in killing another human being in the name of your religion.
Yep. Seems logically consistent to me.
I agree. It definitely is logically consistent.
There's still to this day a lot of speculation as to Brigham Young's involvement in the orders to massacre this party.
Yeah.
And
I know there's a lot of speculation. I don't know personally.
To me, it's highly credible that he did know and, in fact, give the order because he was paid out. He was paid out for the property of these. Let's see. I forgot exactly how it worked, but he received a federal government payment on behalf of the people that were killed by his own John D. Lee and Isaac Hite. So he had a financial incentive to do so, as well as all the stuff he could take from the wagon train, and the paranoia factor about these guys might be U.S. spies.
Yeah, definitely a lot of paranoia for sure, and that's why Mormons don't trust the government. A lot of them don't anyway.
Yep. Anyways, this has been Free Talk Live. There will be another show tomorrow night.
Indeed.
You can call in, get your thoughts on the air. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way